What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Review and Preview. My name is Tom Scavetta. I'm your host. It's great to be back here for the NFL playoff season doing a show. Join alongside Amine Kassaoui. Amine, welcome back to Review and Preview.
Well, thanks for having me back. I think it's been pretty much a year exactly since last year's NFL playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you back as a guest on and be my co-host throughout these playoffs. It should be awesome to dive through this round by round. But, folks, if you are new and tuning into this for the first time, you can follow Review and Preview on all of our social media platforms below. We appreciate all of your support. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where this video will be up on exclusively at Review and Preview Sports. All right, so why are we here? It's NFL playoff time. It's Super Wild Card Weekend. We're going to dive into this game by game. We'll start with the games happening on Saturday, Sunday, and then the game Monday night. We'll have to talk about that. It has since been moved, so that will change a lot of things. First up, we have our first game. We have the 5 seed Los Angeles Chargers out of the AFC back in the postseason for the first time since 2022 with first-year head coach Jim Harbaugh on the road against the AFC South champion number 4 seed Houston Texans, who are 10-7, winning the AFC South in back-to-back seasons. On the surface here, Chargers are favored by 3. Are you surprised that they're favored, or is this the way it's been going? Obviously, Chargers are on a 3-game winning streak.
I'm not surprised, actually, because Houston, although they won their division, a weak division, obviously the AFC South, it was almost predetermined that they would win it, although the Colts did give them a little bit of a run towards the end of the season. But, the Texans have been up and down all year. Last year, they made the playoffs with the rookie QB, C.J. Stroud. Everyone thought, all right, next year they're going to take a big step. And they really didn't take any kind of step. They're kind of the same as they were last year, a little bit better. Defensively, they were good last year. They're even better this year. But Stroud, kind of like that second year, I wouldn't call it a sophomore slump, but definitely wasn't as exciting as he was last year. Whereas the Chargers, who last year were in the last in their division, here comes Jim Harbaugh, and all of a sudden they're back in the playoffs. And as you mentioned, the win streak to close it out. I'm not surprised they're the favorites. I would, if I were the betting, markets, I would pick them to be favorites too. And 3 sounds about right.
Yeah. Look, this is an offense, the Chargers, that have scored 34 plus in their last 3 games. Justin Herbert having a phenomenal season. He's had a 100 plus passer rating in 4 out of his last 5. 23 touchdowns to 3 interceptions on the season. I think he's been the focal point of that offense. He's only been sacked once over the last 2 games. It's been an outstanding season for the Chargers. They're going back to that meat and potatoes brand of football, smash mouth, run the ball, and then late in the season, Herbert's throwing dimes. His young guns, we could call them, with Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston. And then, as you mentioned, Houston's been struggling, but there is something to note. Yes, C.J. Stroud has 12 picks this year. Yes, he only has 20 touchdown passes. However, he has faced the 4th most pressure rate of any quarterback this season, and he took 54 sacks, 4th most in the National Football League, losing 2 of his top 3 wideouts in Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, also without right guard Shaq Mason. So their offensive line has definitely been a problem, with rookie right tackle Blake Fisher starting, a 2nd-round pick, and then Titus Howard and Jarrett Patterson in the trenches have not been cutting it out. So, Amine, let's break this down. Let's get your pick here. Who's winning this game?
This is the one I struggled the most with in the AFC, which I think most people would as well. I think it's going to come down to Herbert versus the Texans defense. I think that's where the game will be decided. The Texans had the 2nd most interceptions this season as a team, and as you mentioned, Herbert has the fewest of any quarterback. Opposing quarterbacks who face the Texans have I had it written down here, the lowest completion percentage of any team. Their defense has that against opposing QBs, and obviously Herbert is very effective and accurate as a passer. So that's where the game will be decided. I'm picking the Texans, and here's why. I remember last season, and the Texans in the wild card round for some reason are really good. They're 5-2 in the wild card round. 0-2 after that round, never won past it. But last season, coming into the playoffs, they were facing the Browns, who were red hot. Everyone picked them. They had Joe Flacco, which was, the sentimental story. And then the game starts and the Texans wiped them out. It wasn't even close. I think the Texans are going to be super aggressive defensively, and they're going to get to Herbert. They're going to cause some turnovers. And I know most people think the Chargers are going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. But based on last year and based on that one performance in the playoffs that we saw of Herbert, he blew a 27-point lead to the Jaguars a couple of years ago. Will he get over that? I don't know. Not this. I don't think this year. I think the Texans are going to win it, and I think it's going to be by a score of 27-21.
So Amine has Houston 27-21. Well, I'm glad you went that way because I completely disagree. But I do agree with one of your points. And don't get me wrong, you backed all your points up, and I think there's a lot of logic behind it. I do agree that this game will be decided by Justin Herbert against Houston's pass defense because the Texans have the third best run defense in the NFL. J.K. Dobbins had 9 touchdowns this year in just 13 games played, but they lost Gus Edwards. So that is going to be a factor as well. Who is your complementary back? Are they going to run out Hassan Haskins? One factor, I think, is Jim Harbaugh, right? He's an experienced college and pro football coach, and my key to the game is Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt against Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. Will Anderson Jr. has the second highest pressure rate in the NFL. Texans have caused 29 turnovers. That's a problem. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. Derek Stingley, 5 picks. Kamari Lassiter, second-round rookie, 4 picks. Going up, Kamari Lassiter is going up against this former teammate in Lad McConkey. That should be really interesting. And Lad's had a great year. I mean, 82 receptions, over 1,100 yards, and 7 touchdowns. But this is where I differ. The Texans are just so banged up. They have no offensive line. The Chargers have the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, tied 6th in the NFL with sacks. I mean, Tua Pualotu with 8.5 sacks on the year, safety Derwin James with 5.5, Khalil Mack with 6, Bud Dupree with 6, Joey Bosa with 5. Those guys have played really, really well, and they've drafted well. I think Jesse Minter has a really good defensive scheme, and I'm looking in this game at corners Elijah Molden, Christian Fulton, and Tarheeb Still going up against Nico Collins, and Nico Collins. Nico Collins, a 1,000-yard receiver. I do think Joe Mixon will be a factor in this game as well. I want to see if the Chargers can stop the run, but I trust Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert a little bit more to get this done, and I think Houston is too banged up. So I'm going with the Chargers in this one.
Almost made me rethink my pick there. Good job.
I'm going to go a little lower scoring than you. I'm going to go 23-17 LAC. And by the way, I do know this game is not being played in LA, but our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone in Los Angeles, California area that has been affected by the wildfires. We'll talk about the other LA team in just a little bit. Next up, we'll see if we coincide on this one. I mean, we usually go the other way in almost every game that we've ever predicted together. The number 6 seed, Pittsburgh Steelers, 10-7, the limping Pittsburgh Steelers, I should say. At the 3 seed, Baltimore Ravens, who are 12-5. Ravens favored by 9.5 points on a 4-game winning streak. Their offense has scored 30-plus in 4 straight. The defense has not allowed 20 points or more in 4 straight. And that's part of the reason why, I mean, they're on a 4-game winning streak compared to the Steelers, who are on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, to me, this game is a slam dunk. I don't see any way that these Steelers, and I know it's a division rival, and these are the two, they butt heads all the time. Their history is great. It's, Ed Reed and Polamalu back in the day, and Harbaugh and Tomlin, who have been coaching forever. They've been playing each other countless times. It'll be the 3rd time they face each other in the playoffs. Tomlin has the 2-1 edge there, but the last one was back in 2014, which Harbaugh won. But come on, these two teams are not at the same level of talent, and especially not the same level of momentum. Steelers have just regressed. They had that good start. They surprised people in the beginning. Justin Fields actually kept the boat afloat. And then when Wilson came in, he played well to start, but man, has it been rough the last month or so. Whereas the Ravens, since pretty much, early December, have been on a roll. And Lamar Jackson, I'll say this right now. I know the betting markets are favoring Josh Allen to be the MVP. Earlier today, Lamar Jackson was actually named first team All-Conference, first team All-Pro. Lamar Jackson is the MVP to me of this season. 41 touchdowns to 4 picks. That is an insane touchdown to interception ratio, not to mention everything he does as a runner. I know Zay is out. I think, is that official? Yeah. So that's a pretty huge weapon to be missing, but no, I don't see. The Steelers might make it interesting early on. They're going to play hard because it is the division rival. It's the team they hate the most. But I think the Ravens are going to take this one fairly comfortably. I'll even give you my score now. I'll say Jackson has a big game running, and they're going to get to Wilson, that defense. So I think it'll be final score 24-10 Ravens. I think they cover.
Okay. Look, folks, I think if Pittsburgh is going to win this game, they have to keep it low scoring, and they have to make Lamar uncomfortable. Baltimore has been prone to upsets this year. Those, however, came early on in the year when they lost contests to both the Raiders and the Browns. Yes, 2 of their 5 losses this year were to the Raiders and the Browns, and one of them to the Pittsburgh Steelers. These teams split the season series 1-1, and back in Week 11, Pittsburgh won 18-16. If the Steelers are going to win, that's how they'll have to win. Ravens won back in Week 16. Lamar Jackson had 3 touchdown passes. Derrick Henry had 162 rushing yards. This game was on Christmas Day. Lamar this year, yes, he's up there, in my opinion, top 2 MVP for sure. A 119.6 passer rating, that is first in the National Football League to go with those 41 touchdowns to just 4 picks. And also their offensive line has kept his jersey clean. They've kept them upright. They've allowed just 4 sacks over the last 4 games. And when you're going up against edge rushers like TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, you have to protect the quarterback. And that's where Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten come into play here. You have to keep them clean. Also, fun fact, Amine, did you know the Ravens are 10-0 when Derrick Henry has 90 or more rushing yards?
Interesting. No, not. Thank you. That's a good little factoid.
It is. Another factoid, tight end Mark Andrews has scored a touchdown in 6 straight games. I think he gets another with Zay Flowers being out. Not to mention, too, I know Zay Flowers being out will hurt, but you still have Isaiah Likely, who has 6 touchdowns this year. Their 1-2 tight end combo might be the best punch in the NFL. And then Rashad Bateman, who has 9 scores this year. It's going to be very interesting to see how Baltimore will attack this offensively. And for Pittsburgh on the other side of the ball on offense, I don't know how they're going to move the football. They've scored under 18 points in each of their last 4 games. And their starting left tackle, Dan Moore, gave up 3.5 sacks to Trey Hendrickson last week. And they're going up against the Ravens defense that has 54 sacks, second in the NFL with the second lowest blitz rate. How crazy is that? And they have the best run defense in the NFL. So give me Baltimore. I'm going, I'm going to go Baltimore 26, Pittsburgh 19.
Yeah, fair enough. And another thing I'll say about this matchup, the only hope for the Steelers, if I'm going to give them any hope, Lamar Jackson, he's played his worst in his career against Pittsburgh. He has the most interceptions against any opponent is Pittsburgh, only a 2-4 record. He was 1-4 entering Christmas. So they're the team that gives him the most trouble, but I don't see it happening. I just want to throw that out there to give our Pittsburgh fans just a little bit of hope.
No, absolutely. I think you got to get the ball to George Pickens somehow. I just don't know how they're doing it against that pass rush and that run defense and make them one-dimensional early. Yeah. Next up, we go to Sunday afternoon. This is the CBS 1 o'clock game. The 7th seed Denver Broncos get back into the playoffs for the first time since they won their last Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. It's been about 8-9 years. They're 10-7, led by rookie quarterback Bo Nix, who was the 6th quarterback taken in this year's NFL draft and will likely finish as runner-up for Offensive Rookie of the Year. They'll be on the road against the 2-seed Buffalo Bills up in upstate New York. It's glad to see that there is one local team playing excellent football at this time of year. Amine and I are both Giants fans, so in case you didn't know. The Bills are favored by 8.5 points behind the second best scoring offense in the NFL. An offense that has scored 24+ in 10 straight. However, going up against the Broncos defense that's given up the 3rd least amount of points this season and a team with the most sacks in the National Football League this year with 63.
Yeah, it's really a matchup of strength versus strength in terms of offense versus defense. And the Broncos just getting to the playoffs is such a good it's such a feel-good story when you think to how tumultuous it was a couple of years ago when Russell Wilson and Sean Payton were spatting and all the drama that they had. For them to get back into the playoffs is a great tip of the hat for Payton. But obviously, the story of the season for Denver has been great defense, awesome rookie QB. Bo Nix, you couldn't have asked for more from a QB, especially playing in the AFC West where you got to see the Chiefs twice a year. It's the battles with the Raiders and Chargers, who also obviously made the playoffs, are always, intense. So kudos to Bo Nix, but I don't see how their defense can stop Buffalo's offense at home. Buffalo averages 34 points per game on their field. They were 8-0 this season. That 34 number is the highest they've ever had in a season for a home slate of games. 8-0, as I mentioned. Josh Allen, 11-2 in outdoor games when the temperature is below 30 degrees. It'll probably be that this game. And listen, Josh Allen and the Bills are in a similar position to the Ravens. This wild card round game they can't have a slip up here. They're the better team. They have the experience from the past couple of seasons. they should take care of business at home fairly comfortably because for them and the Ravens, the question is, and by the way, if they both win, they meet in the next round based on the seedings. So, and I think that's what's going to happen based on not to basically, I gave you my pick already. The Bills are going to win. So I think it's going to be Bills and Ravens in the divisional again in Buffalo, which I can't wait to see. We've never had Lamar versus Josh Allen in the postseason. But that's my pick. I'm picking the Bills to take care of business. I think Josh Allen, is going to run for at least one touchdown. He is such a great running quarterback. He is almost underrated in my eyes because everyone talks about Lamar and everything, but Josh Allen maybe doesn't have the yardage, but he has the touchdowns along with Jalen Hurts. They're the big three rushing QBs in my opinion right now. So I see the Bills taking care of business fairly comfortably. I think the Broncos will keep it close early, but I think after halftime, the Bills, will sail. And I think they're going to score 31 points. And I think they're going to hold the Broncos to 14 points. So I'm seeing the Bills winning big, as they did last year in the wild card round.
Wow. Yeah, look, it should be really, really interesting. And I talked about that Denver pass rush getting 63 sacks. Nick Bonino with 13.5, Jonathan Cooper 10.5, Zach Allen up the middle with 8.5. However, this is the point here. The Bills offense has only allowed 14 sacks all season. That's the least amount in the NFL. Right tackle Spencer Brown, not too shabby. He's allowed only 1 sack all year. And in my opinion, I think Josh Allen should win the MVP this year. And that's nothing against Lamar Jackson. His numbers are better than they were the last 2 years that he's won MVP, but it's the supporting cast in Buffalo. Receiver-wise, it's a bunch of young role players. There is no true number one receiver on this team. Dalton Kincaid missed a lot of time this season. Let's be real. Allen had to carry a lot this year, and they were better than they were last year without Stephon Diggs, without Gabriel Davis. So I think there is some stuff to be said there about that. They have a good underneath volume receiver in Khalil Shakir, who I think will get his fair share of catches in this game. I want to see if Amari Cooper can get involved in this offense. It's been a rough go for him since being traded to Buffalo, Amine. And then you got Keon Coleman, who could stretch the field, the rookie wide receiver out of Florida State. And another guy who deserves mention is Mac Hollins, a guy who sort of revived his career up in Buffalo. 5 touchdowns this season. That's the most among Buffalo Bills wide receivers. And they don't have too bad of a running back either. James Cook tied first in the NFL with 16 touchdowns. However, though, that Broncos run defense is pretty good. They're pretty good. Denver, I'm going to give them their flowers. Bo Nix, a 100-plus rate in 3 straight games, helped get them to the postseason. I know they played against Kansas City's backups, but you can't control who's on your schedule and what the other team does. You have to go out and win football games. Marvin Mims, rising young.
Yeah, they won that game decisively. It wasn't even so like they took care of business.
They did, and they deserve to be here. Let's not knock ourselves. They won games consistently all year, unlike the Cincinnati Bengals, who showed up halfway through the season, even though they were a good second half story as well. Yeah, look, the Bills don't blitz too much, so I think Bo Nix will have time to throw the football. But I'm going to go a little bit higher scoring than you did for Denver, only because Denver scored 24 plus in 7 straight games. I mean, I like the connection Bo Nix has with Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims. Yeah, it's going to be a tough environment on the road. I think Buffalo wins this game 27. I'm going to go 27-20 Buffalo. I think Denver covers only because their defense will keep up with that Bills offense in the first half. Like you said, I think they'll keep it close. And I think Buffalo will be up 2 possessions late. Denver will sort of score like a garbage time touchdown to make the score look a little bit closer. So that's what I've got there, 27-20 Buffalo. Next up, we go to the NFC, the 7th-seeded walking wounded Green Bay Packers, the only team in the NFL to finish 11-6 this season. They'll be on the road at the Link, down on 95 against the 2-seeded Philadelphia Eagles, who are 14-3. Eagles favored by 4.5. Amine, a well-rested Eagles team. They rested most of their offensive starters in Week 18, unlike the Green Bay Packers, who lost wide receiver Christian Watson for the season with an injury. Packers QB Jordan Love banged up as well. On the surface here, what are your initial thoughts about this one?
Well, you went with it. You didn't bury the lead. They are the walking wounded. Like the Packers, these injuries, I think, are going to be too much for them against a physical team like Philly at the Link, which is one of the great home field advantages. To me, the injury to Watson it's colossal because he was their best option. Him and Love had a great connection all season long, and Love was in and out this season. He's dealt with injuries a lot, especially I think he got hurt in the first game against Philly, and then missed a couple of weeks, and then returned and kind of steered the team back in the right direction. But I don't think they last year they shocked the world. They went into Dallas as a heavy underdog against a 12-win Cowboys team, and destroyed them on their field. I can't see that happening to this Eagles team. I'm curious about rust with Jalen Hurts. It has been a minute since we've seen him, and last year in the playoffs, the Eagles lost in the wild card at Tampa Bay. A game, I think they were actually. I don't forget if they were host. They were at Tampa Bay because they were second in the division, and everyone assumed that they were going to take care of business. They were the defending conference champ, and they didn't. And I think they're gonna remember that because they're 2 years removed from playing in the Super Bowl. Most of the same players, only they've got the added addition of perhaps the best running back in the league in Saquon Barkley, and he's going to have something to prove. After years as a Giant, he only had that one playoff season in 2022. Other than that, I don't think he's ever seen the postseason. So and they were, they lost to the Eagles, ironically, that year, the team he plays for now. I think he's going to have something to prove. I think the fact that they rested him and didn't let him chase that rushing record, he said all the right things. He's a pro's pro. But of course, I think deep down, he's going to want to come out and show the world who he is on the bigger stage. In the regular season, it's great. But when you do it in the playoffs, that's what counts. I think they're going to take care of the Packers. I think it's going to be a close game, actually. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like some of the other games I've predicted. But I think that the Eagles take care of business at home and they win 24-21.
Close game, I mean.
Yeah, I believe in the Packers. I just think it's too much. I think towards the end, the Eagles are just going to take care of them.
Yeah, look, another fun fact here, if you're an Eagles fan, they're 10-0 in the last 10 full Jalen Hurts games. So when he started and finished the game, they're 10-0. These teams met back in week 1 against Brazil. Philly won, or down in Brazil. Might have messed that up. 34-29, Eagles win. And I think the recipe, you mentioned it before, that's gotten the Eagles to this point, to 14 wins this season and that 2 seed, is the running game. It's Barkley and it's the offensive line. Eagles had 3 Pro Bowl offensive linemen, a few All-Pros as well. A lot of people argued Lane Johnson got snubbed for Penei Sewell. We'll see about that. I mean, I think they're both the top 2 right tackles in the NFL. This team threw the ball the least amount of times this year and ran it the most. Saquon with those 2,005 rushing yards, averaging just under 6 yards per carry with 13 scores. And you got Jalen Hurts, who also has 14 rushing touchdowns. So between the two, you don't know who's coming at what time, and they have good weapons offensively. Dallas Goedert is back healthy. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith cause problems, and that young Packers secondary will have their hands full. They don't have much of a pass rush outside of Rashawn Gary, who has 7.5 sacks. So it's going to be tough cooking for Green Bay. And on the other end of the ball, when they have the football, this Eagles defense has been elite this year. They've shut down opposing wide receivers with 2 rookie corners in Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo and Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. This secondary holds not just wide receivers, but QBs to the 3rd lowest rate this year in the NFL, and that's going to be a problem. So for me, Josh Jacobs has to get it going. He has 15 scores this year for a reason, over 1,300 yards. We talk about Saquon finding his own with a new team. What about Josh Jacobs going from Las Vegas to Green Bay? It's worked out beautifully for him. I've been very impressed. I think Zach Bond and the Kobe Dean will be busy on that second level. We'll see if Green Bay can push the green helmets back enough on 1st and 2nd down to keep Jordan Love out of 3rd and long. I know he's banged up. I think Love is a good NFL quarterback, but good is as far as I'll go. I think he's a bit overrated, in my opinion. He has shown inaccuracies at times against good defenses. However, over his last 6 games, 9 touchdowns, no picks. I don't know. I think Philly gets a pick in this game. I mean, you got edge rushers like Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter. It's going to be tough. I'm picking the Eagles. I'm not going to say the FEF phrase. I'm not an Eagles fan, but you got to give Philadelphia credit. Philadelphia wins 30-17. So I think Philly takes care of business. I don't think Green Bay could stop the run. I mean, I don't see it.
I don't think so either.
All right. So we move on to Sunday Night Football. The Washington Commanders of the NFC East, the 6th-seeded Washington Commanders at 12-5, are at the 3-seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wow, Tampa Bay favored by 3. These teams met back in week 1. Tampa Bay took care of business. Baker Mayfield had 4 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards in that game, 2 of them to Mike Evans. I mean, Tampa Bay did not have it easy this year. They lost both Evans and Godwin due to injuries. Godwin for the season. Evans eventually came back, and Tampa Bay won 6 out of their last 7 games, winning the NFC South after starting 4-6 in Washington. I think it's self-explanatory, man. They got the offensive rookie of the year on their team, and you could do anything with that kid under center.
Yeah, how it must feel to be a Bears fan watching Jaden Daniels like this when you could have had him. He is the offensive rookie of the year, and he has led this team, which has not been good the last couple of years, back to the playoffs. 12 wins in his rookie season. That's incredible. And not just the wins, but how he's gotten them. All these last second, he had the Hail Mary against Chicago. He had the last second pass against the Cowboys a week or so ago. He's been a revelation. This is the game I'm actually most looking forward to of all the wild card games because I think it's going to be a high scoring shootout. Both of these teams are in the top 5 in points per game. Both of them are. They both have a Heisman winning quarterback, which I don't know how many times that's happened in the playoffs in NFL history, but that's got to be rare. And as you mentioned, Baker, 41 touchdowns. He's had a monster year, tied for the second most in the NFL. And there's enough holdovers from the Super Bowl winning Buck team from a few years ago. Vita Vea, Evans, you mentioned, Levante David. So there's guys there who know how to win on the biggest stage. And last year, I mentioned it before, they took out Philly, who were the defending conference champs in the wild card, and surprised a lot of people. They actually pushed the Lions to the brink in the divisional round. And they've been really resilient this year. I respect Baker Mayfield a lot more in his Bucks tenure than I have for most of his career. I never thought highly of him, but he's been a pretty good leader, and he's got his team playing well. They're back in the playoffs. He's been there 2 years. He's taken them to the playoffs twice. So I'm looking forward to this game. It's going to be a high-scoring game, in my opinion, and I hope I'm right because I want to say, it's going to be in Tampa. Weather's good, and you got two teams who are young, and neither of these teams is going to win the Super Bowl this year. Neither of these teams. That's why I'm kind of looking forward to it. They both have nothing to lose. It's like house money. I think they're going to go in and give us a show. This is a pick 'em. I look at the stats and I'm like, well, they're very even. The Commanders are better on the rush, although Bucky Irving has been great for Tampa Bay right out the gates. Both quarterbacks are excellent against the blitz. Both teams score a lot, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm gonna go with Washington to win 38-35. And the only reason I'm siding with them a little bit more is the Jaden Daniels wow factor. And can he do it in the playoffs? I think he can. He did it last season when he was with LSU. He won the Heisman, but he didn't have, a chance to play in the playoffs and do it on the grand stage. This is his first big time postseason game in his career. So I think he's going to go out there and he's going to ball. I think Baker's going to ball too. And it may just come down to who has the ball last. And in my opinion, it'll be the Commanders.
Wow, must hurt with 2 NFC East teams advancing to the NFC divisional round in Amine's mind.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, look, Jaden Daniels is that guy. The Commanders' offense is 5th in the NFL in points scored per game this year, and Jaden Daniels is the main reason why. I also think Cliff Kingsbury becoming their OC has been a huge help. Jaden with 25 touchdown passes to 9 picks, not too shabby for a rookie. That includes 891 rush yards and 6 touchdowns. However, this is my concern for Washington. Daniels has been sacked 4 or more times in 3 of his last 4 games. And what do the Bucs have? They have 4 players with 5+ sacks. They have the second highest blitz rate in the NFL. Jaden Daniels, however, 12 touchdowns, 1 pick against the blitz this season. So he's been relatively good against the blitz. However, it's the playoffs, and when you get consistently pressured, it's concerning. You mentioned Levante David, 5.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Kalijah Kancey, 7.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. Yaya Diaby, 4.5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. Vita Vea, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. There's guys with a lot of experience and push on this Bucs front. So my question is this: can Washington exploit Tampa's weaknesses? And that comes on the boundaries, right? Their corners. Can he get the ball out to Terry McLaurin, who has 13 touchdowns, 1,000 yards? Can he get the ball to Zacchaeus, who has 50 receiving yards or more in 3 straight games? Or Zach Ertz, who has 7 touchdown receptions this season? That's going to be a problem for Tampa, a defense who has held 4 out of their last 5 opponents to under 3 straight games, and Washington's getting healthier. Austin Eckler's back. Brian Robinson, good, solid running back. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think Todd Bowles might have some tricks up his sleeve in this game. We'll see what happens. Baker Mayfield's been phenomenal this year. 41 touchdown passes, 16 picks, but man, he throws the ball a lot. So take that interception number with a grain of salt, if you should say.
A matchup to keep an eye on is Evans and Lattimore. Those guys hate each other.
Yeah.
It's been a rivalry since Lattimore's with the Saints. They used to play each other twice a season. There've been suspensions because of altercations between them. And usually Lattimore gets the better of Evans on the field. So that's definitely, and he's their best receiver probably. So that's definitely a matchup to keep an eye on.
Yeah, they don't like each other at all. Definitely a key matchup for me too. one concern for Washington defensively, they can't stop the run, guys. They have the 30th ranked run defense in the NFL this season. Bucky Irving over 1,100 yards and 8 scores. You got Rashad White as the change of pace back. We talked about Mike Evans against Marshawn Lattimore. That's going to be fun. How about Jalen McMillan? When Chris Godwin got hurt, I mean, everybody got really worried. Who's going to step up in this Tampa offense? Kate Otten didn't play last week, the tight end. He was banged up. And McMillan has at least 1 touchdown reception in 5 straight games, at least 50 receiving yards in 5 straight games. McMillan out of Washington is my player to watch in this game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a rookie QB has not won a road playoff game since Russell Wilson in 2012. And that is why I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Final score 34-31.
So we have the same 3-point difference. You just have Tampa, and I got Washington.
That's right. Oh man, we're in for a treat on Monday Night Football, though. And the sad news is that unfortunately the Rams cannot play this game in Los Angeles. It will be moved to Arizona. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of all the wildfires and natural disasters out there in the state of California and along the West Coast. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a rough situation, especially for the fans too that really wanted to go to this game. Some of them don't even have their homes, which is terrible. I don't even know what to say in regards to that, but the Rams got to play for their city, and it's definitely going to be an exciting game on Monday Night Football that hopefully can take people's minds, even if it's only for 3 hours or temporarily, off of what's going on in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo all your sentiments. It's really sad what's going on, and there is nothing to say but offer our prayers and hope for everyone to be well. And hopefully, one of the, I don't know, based on the seeding, if it's possible for either the LA teams, if they win, is it possible to get a home game depending on who they play down the line? But maybe in the conference finals, if there's upsets, they can have that. I'm sure that would be great for the city. I assume by then it would be possible to have games there. So that's something to look forward to down the line. But in terms of this game, it's the master versus the pupil in terms of the head coaches. Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell, they were together O'Connell was his OC, right? On the Rams. Yeah. The year they won the Super Bowl. And now he's taken Minnesota and he's done a great job there. Minnesota this year, if I had said to you at the beginning of the year, Sam Darnold is going to have a better season statistically than Patrick Mahomes, you would have said, Amine, you're on drugs. Get off. You should go to rehab, because that would be a ludicrous statement. But he did it. He had an outstanding season, outplayed Patrick Mahomes if you look at the stats. And really out of the blue, people thought maybe McCarthy would get some starts this season. Of course, he goes down before the season even starts. Sam Darnold steps in, and being a New Yorker, I remember the Sam Darnold Jets years. I have no idea where this came from. Even when he was in Carolina, he wasn't playing well. It's really remarkable. It's a kind of a remarkable story of rags to riches for him. And now is the question, can he do it in the playoffs? Because his team is strong. He's got a ton of weapons, but now is the postseason, and he's in some ways, it's right that they don't play a true road game, because a 14-win team should not have to be on the road at someone. At least it's at a neutral site. It's going to be interesting. I always believe in Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan, those guys who were all assistants on the Redskins back in the day. They're all so good at schemes in the playoffs and finding ways to exploit the weaknesses of an opponent's defense. Can McVay do that here? That's the question. Because if his defense makes Sam Darnold look the way he looked in the regular season finale against the Lions, the Rams are going to win this game, because Matthew Stafford is playing awesome the last couple of weeks. Nakua has been excellent. They have, how many games have they won in a row entering the playoffs? I had it written down here.
I know they started 1-4 this season.
Okay. Yeah, so think about that. From 1-4 to winning your division. Matthew Stafford, over 300 yards per game in the playoffs. That's the highest of any quarterback ever, minimum 5 starts. So he lights it up. I think there's the bad taste for how they were eliminated last year against the Lions. He lost at his old team, and I think that's going to play a role here. Minnesota favored by 1. To me, I'm picking the Rams to win this game. I don't believe in Darnold. I think he's had a great season, and he can shut me up. But I believe that the master will outmaneuver the pupil. And I know they both, when it's this kind of matchup, when it's two guys who are on the same staff, one guy was that's always a good game. I remember that back in the day, and when Andy Reid would go against Mike Holmgren, who he was an assistant for, those games were always super well coached and well played. I believe in McVay more. I believe in Stafford more. And I just think the Cinderella story is going to end for Sam Darnold on Sunday night, on Monday night. That's my opinion. In terms of a score, I think the Rams are going to win. I'm going to say 28-24. Fairly close game, but in the end, Stafford delivers the goods.
All right. It's very possible too because the Vikings defense just surrendered 139 rushing yards and 3 scores to Jahmyr Gibbs last week. And Kyron Williams is a really good running back, 1,300 yards, 14 scores on the year. And the Vikings only lost 3 games this year, 2 of them to the Lions, the other one to the Rams. Back in week 9, 30-20. Matthew Stafford had 4 touchdown passes in that game, and the Vikings did not have any sacks. And this is what's remarkable. Stafford has not been sacked in his last 4 games. However, this is a challenge. You got Andrew Van Ginkel, who's a Pro Bowler at a career-high 11.5 sacks. Jonathan Grenard, the free agent from Houston, has 12 sacks. I mean, Brian Flores' defense, they're going to send the house. They're going to disguise blitzes. Their defense has allowed quarterbacks to have the second lowest rate in the NFL this season. They lead the NFL with picks with 24. First against wide receivers. So Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, who's been silent the last few weeks, I think are going to have a hard time getting open. And then, it really comes down to Sam Darnold, right? On the other end, can the Rams get enough pressure? Can Jared Verse, Byron Young, Kobe Turner? Kobe Turner's got 8 sacks. Braden Fisk, the rookie out of FSU, 8.5 sacks. Can they get to Sam Darnold? Can they beat that Minnesota offensive line and prevent him from getting the ball to his 1,500-yard, 10 TD receiver in Justin Jefferson, his 9-touchdown receiver in Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson coming back after missing over half the season? That's what strikes out to me. And the Rams defense, they've held opponents to under 10 points in weeks 15 through 17. Now, the major question, last week was the Rams rested their starters when they could have been the 3 seed. They lost to the Seahawks, and then Tampa won. That they were able to leapfrog LA to the 3 seed because of that. There's a lot of people questioning McVay's decision-making, and his response was, we've been banged up all year long. We need a rest week. We're playing to go all the way. We're not playing for 1 week. I thought that was a great answer. However, it still is a questionable decision, right? When you do think about it, I would rather be the 3 seed playing the Commanders than the Minnesota Vikings because that Vikings defense is fierce. We could talk about Jaden Daniels being special all we want. That Minnesota defense is a problem. And the Rams defense, however, struggles against the run. Aaron Jones has been a great addition this year for Minnesota, over 1,100 yards and 5 scores. These teams have not met in the playoffs since the 1999 divisional round. Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay, teenagers at the time.
That's
How do you
crazy.
like
Yeah,
that
they're
for
both
a fun
under.
fact?
That is amazing because they are both under 40, so that would make sense.
Minnesota wins 30-27.
Wow. All right, so we got 3 where we agree and 3 where we disagree.
And don't be surprised if Daniel Jones gets in the game for a goal line run, potentially.
That's all we need.
That's all we need. Amine takes the cap off and plays with his hair. It's like, Tom, you had to bring this up at the end of the show. Daniel Jones is in the playoffs. The Giants are not.
Daniel Jones is in the play. Watch him. Yeah, you're right. Watch him come in and do something amazing. And then we all have to sit here and watch it and basically dwell in our tears.
In all seriousness, though, O'Connell's locker room speeches are very passionate. I don't know if you've watched any of them this season at all. He gets into it with his players, and I really believe in that defense, and I believe in Sam Darnold. I do. I think it's going to be a very close game. But, man, this is really – you mentioned Bucks Commanders. I think Vikings-Rams is going to be a real toss-up. And I think Minnesota wants that sweet revenge from week 9. So we'll see what happens there. All right. Early Super Bowl prediction. Amine, we'll start with you. Subject to change, of course, based on who advances and who does not. Who wins the Super Bowl against who? You don't have to give a final score, but who do you think wins the Super Bowl?
I think the Chiefs are going to go with the 3-peat. I find it hard. I think getting that 1 seed almost guarantees them a win in the divisional round. Like, pretty much they're going to beat whoever they play in that first game. I can't imagine them losing their first game with so much rest and time to prepare with such a great coach as Andy Reid. And then in the conference championship, I think they're going to play Baltimore or Buffalo. They're going to be at home. They have owned those 2 teams in the playoffs the past couple of years. And I think that hunger and the fact that they've been so open about their chase of the 3-peat. Sometimes teams run away from those things. They're like, no, 1 game at a time, blah, blah, blah. They have been talking about the 3-peat since they won, since the day they won the Super Bowl. On this podium, I remember Kelsey talking about it. So I think they're going to get to the Super Bowl where they have all the experience. And I think for the first time in history, we're going to see a team win 3 straight Super Bowls. They've got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, one of the greatest head coaches of all time, one of the greatest tight ends of all time. They are just strong everywhere. Chris Jones, I think, will go down as a Hall of Fame player for sure. And who they play in the Super Bowl, that I'm more iffy about because the NFC is sort of a toss-up. It could even, I picked Minnesota to lose. I could see Minnesota going on a run and getting there. Could happen. But in my opinion, it's going to be the Eagles. And we're going to get a rematch from the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I think the Eagles have all the components, that's many of which you talked about when you were talking about all their strengths, how good they are on the run, how good they are defensively at holding teams to few amounts of points. So I think they're going to get to the Super Bowl. And I think it's kind of funny for the Chiefs. I think it'll be they beat the 49ers twice in the Super Bowl. They beat the Eagles twice in the Super Bowl. And those are their 4 Patrick Mahomes Super Bowls.
If the Chiefs and the Eagles make the Super Bowl, I might have to root for the Eagles.
Oh, really?
I can't root for Kansas City anymore. But yeah, you're right. They might go all the way. I also think the Chiefs make the Super Bowl, but I have them losing it to the Detroit Lions. They are fundamentally the best team up and down this year. They got Alex Anzalone back last week. They're going to get Aiden Hutchinson back if they make the Super Bowl, potentially.
What
was that?
Aiden Hutchinson might be able to come back.
He might be able to play in the Super Bowl if they get there.
Wow. Okay, yeah. That makes it. I thought because they're so banged up, that's why I didn't pick them. But if they can get some of those guys back, yeah, I can see that happening. That's a bold pick, Tom.
Yeah, it is. It is a bold pick, but I think the Lions get it done. David Montgomery rumored to come back for the divisional round, so they're getting healthier. They're getting guys back. I think they have 3 head coaches on their team with Campbell, Johnson, and Glenn. I think all 3 of those guys will be future head coaches. I just love what Dan Campbell has instilled in his football team. I think the Chiefs are bound to be dethroned at some point or lose a Super Bowl again. I'm just not that impressed with their offense this year. Matt Nagy's offense is sort of vanilla, if you ask me. I think that's the problem. I think defensively, they have the biggest chance. So I'm going Detroit right now, but we will see what happens. That's it for the Super Wild Card preview, folks. Excited to talk about it. Folks, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. Amine, it's been a pleasure having you on for this episode this week.
Pleasure being with you, Tom. Always a great joy to talk sports with you.
Absolutely. On behalf of Amine Kassaoui, I'm Tom Scavetta. This has been the Super Wildcard Round preview here at Review and Preview Sports. Enjoy the games, everybody. Have a good week.